Hey there, Dr. Avinash here. Let's talk about local anesthetic medications that are given to numb pain, usually for pain, but these are drugs upon topical application or local injection can cause reversible loss of sensory perception, especially of pain in a restricted area of body. Now, when I say local anesthetic, actually all sensory modalities stop because these medications stop action potential. But I hope you understand that action potential is the way nerves work, right? So local anesthetic are also going to block motor function as well as autonomic functions. So they block every single action of nervous tissue at a particular location. Simple. We are interested in blocking pain. All the other things also get blocked. The classification of local anesthetic is very simple. We can classify them based on how we use it. Is it injectable or is it surface? Injectables are further subclassified into low potency short duration, procaine, chloroprocaine. Intermediate potency, intermediate duration, lidocaine or lignocaine, both means the same thing, and prilocaine. And high potency long duration includes tetracaine, also known as amethocaine, bupivacaine, ropivacaine, dibucaine. Dibucaine is also known as cincocaine. Surface anesthetic are either soluble or insoluble. Solubles include cocaine, lidocaine, tetracaine and benoxynate, and insoluble includes benzocaine, butamben and oxythazine. Now this is one way of classifying. Let's speak about the chemistry. Local anesthetic are weak bases. They dissolve in water as well as lipids. We call them amphiphilic. So they are weak bases with amphiphilic properties. Now as you can see, this is also a local anesthetic and this is also a local anesthetic. Look at the bond present in the first one and look at the bond present in the second one, and look at the heterocyclic rings at each of these compounds. In each of these compounds, the cyclical part actually makes the local anesthetic lipid soluble. The aromatic residue makes it lipid soluble, whereas the long chain secondary or tertiary amine makes it more water soluble. Look at the link between the aromatic residue and the tertiary or secondary amine. It is either CONH, this is called as the amide link, or C double bond OO link, that is the ester link. So using the chemistry, we can classify local anesthetic as ester linked local anesthetics, including crocaine, procaine, chloroprocaine, tetracaine and benzocaine, and amide linked local anesthetics such as lidocaine, bupivacaine, dibucaine, prilocaine and ropivacaine. So basically I gave you two classifications, one based on how we use it and second based on their chemistry. The local anesthetics which belong to the amide category, they are better because they produce intense and long lasting anesthesia. They bind to alpha-1 acid glycoprotein in the plasma, whereas the ester links do not. They are not easily hydrolyzed by the plasma esterase, so they kind of have a longer activity, okay, because they are not broken down that easily. But they can not cause hypersensitivity reaction. They don't have cross sensitivity with esters, and hence they are safer. And that's why amide linked local anesthetics are our favorite. We use them more as compared to ester linked ones. Now, how do these drugs work? Simple. You need to understand the working of sodium channel. Now, if you have gone through my cardiovascular system pharmacology, you would also have understood the working of calcium channel. Sodium channel works just like calcium channel. It exists in one of the three states: the resting state, the activated or the open stage, and the inactivated or the closed stage. Look at this diagram. You will realize that the sodium channel has two gates, one activation gate and one inactivation gate. This is the trick to remember. activation gate is fast to open, fast to close. The inactivation gate is slow to open, slow to close. Simple. Now, in the resting stage, both activation gate is closed, inactivation gate is open. When it is stimulated because of action potential, the activation gate suddenly flings open, because of which sodium has the opportunity to come inside the cell. This is called as the activated state. Sodium is coming in. Now at the same time, the inactivation gate already has started closing, but it is very slow to close, and as a result, sodium has more time to come in. Simple. When the inactivation gate closes, the channel is said to be in the inactivated state. Now in this moment, as you might notice, the inactivation gate is closed and the activation gate is open. Slowly the inactivation gate will open, the activation gate will close, and the channel will again become resting. So these are the three phases of any sodium channel. Now, when the pH in the tissue we are injecting the local anesthetic is nearer to the pKa. pKa is the dissociation constant, the pH at which 50% of the drug is ionized and 50% is unionized. That is pKa. So the pH of the tissue, if it is near to the pKa, 50% of the drug is unionized. Important. More drug which is unionized can cross the cell membrane, and once inside the cell, the drug becomes ionized again and it can act faster. Okay, the more high the pKa, more further away from pH, the lower is the penetration, and hence lower would be the action. I hope I am making sense. If the pH of the tissue is equal to pKa, which is, what is pKa? The pH at which 50% drug is ionized, 50% is not ionized. Remember, ionized substances cannot cross the cell membrane. Now, as the unionized drug crosses the cell membrane and enters inside the nerve cell, it becomes ionized, and then what it does, it is blocks the opening of, or retards the opening of, inactivation gate, which means when an action potential comes, the sodium channel becomes activated. Sodium starts coming in. Now let me draw that for you. If you give a local anesthetic which is ionized, it cannot cross the membrane. If it becomes B, unionized, it will enter inside the neuron and keep waiting there after it becomes ionized again. Okay, of course. Simple. So the drug has become ionized and it is now waiting inside. When this activated state happens, the drug enters into this channel and kind of waits for the inactivation gate to close. The moment the inactivation gate closes, it does not allow this inactivation to open in this amount of time. So let's say X seconds is what it normally takes for the inactivated stage to become resting state. Now there will be more time required for this channel to open. Now let me ask a simple question. If more time is required for this cycle to get completed, then don't you think per unit time, the opening and closing will decrease? Let me ask it in another way so that things are simple. Imagine it takes 1 second for the channel to go from resting to activated state, 1 second for the channel to go from activated to inactivated state, and 1 second to go from inactivated back to resting, then again 1 second to active. In 1 minute, What is the maximum time this channel can work? You will be like, so simple. It is 60 seconds of time we have, and every time the channel does this entire process, it is 3 seconds. So that would be 20 times per minute is the maximum time this sodium will open. But now I am telling you, my medicine is delaying the inactivated state. It makes it remain in the inactive state for longer time. So if it is taking 1 second for resting to active, 1 second from active to inactive, and let's say 3 seconds for the sake of calculation to go from inactive to active, it is prolonging the inactivated state of sodium channel, right? Then what will happen? Now it takes 5 seconds to complete the cycle. Now let me ask you this question again. In 1 minute, that is 60 seconds, how many times maximum can this channel open? This answer would be 12. So if something that was supposed to open 20 times in a minute is opening only 12 times, don't you think the amount of sodium coming in overall will decrease? And when the amount of sodium coming in decreases, don't you think the action potential will not happen properly? This is exactly what is happening. Please note, we are not changing the resting membrane potential. We are just not allowing depolarization to take place. Simple. We are not causing hyperpolarization. We are not opening negative channels. No, negative ions are not going in. We are just blocking action potential. So lower the pKa more towards the physiologic pH. Like if you have lignocaine or mepivacaine, a medicine that has a pKa of 7.6, 7.8, which is almost like अपना physiological pH, which is 7.35 to 7.45. Then they become fast acting, because then the unionized drug can easily cross. But then there's procaine, tetracaine, bupivacaine, their pK is 8.1 to 8.9. So very little unionized at physiological pH of 7.4, right? So they will be slower acting. So pKa decides who will cross the cell membrane, the neuronal membrane faster and block the sodium channels, and who will not. The only exception to this rule is chloroprocaine. It probably works by other mechanisms that we are not clear. Chloroprocaine has a pKa of 9.1 and yet blocks sodium channels better. Simple. Now, please understand that not all nerve fibers will respond equally to local anesthetic. The pain, sensations of temperature, touch, deep pressure, and finally motor function will go. So first pain goes away, then temperature, touch, deep pressure, and motor. The autonomic fibers are gone first, which are small unmyelinated type C, the pain sensing ones, then the small myelinated A delta, and then the larger myelinated A gamma, A beta, and A alpha. They go. So there is a sequence. The smaller non-myelinated are blocked first, the bigger myelinated ones are blocked later. Okay. Now it's not that the fiber size is what is determining whether the local anesthetic will block it or not. It is the number of nodes, how far those nodes of Ranvier are. Now for local anesthetic to be functional, a fixed number of nodes must be blocked. Right? So if the nodes are near, they will be blocked faster. This length, the minimum nodes that you need to block to stop the nerves from firing action potential, is called as critical length. Clear? So basically you think about it this way. If I give a local anesthetic and it spreads out in a particular area, how many nodes of Ranvier or how much of axon is blocked? Look at the unmyelinated one which I have drawn at the top. This much area of non-myelinated nerve is going to be under the influence of local anesthetic. But if you calculate the smaller fibers, this much area, 1, 2 and 3, this much area will be under action of local anesthetic. But in case of large fibers, maybe much lesser area. So it is not the size, it is actually the area of axon which is getting acted upon. So smaller fibers have more area of axon which is affected by the action, the local anesthetic. I hope you got this. If you not, either drop in a comment or WhatsApp me. I will help you out with this. So this particular table you can take a screenshot. This is to show you the susceptibility of block, like which fibers are blocked at what level. Okay, so have a look at this. Just take a screenshot and you can keep it. This is not for your exam. This is put specifically for postgraduate entrance exams. So let's talk about why in many local anesthetic, especially lignocaine, we add adrenaline in the concentration of 1:50,000 to 1:2 lakh. Why is this combination of adrenaline plus lignocaine a rational combination? Why not only give lignocaine? Well, first of all, adrenaline is a vasoconstrictor. When you give an injection of local anesthetic lignocaine plus adrenaline, adrenaline constricts the blood vessel. If the site of injection does not have new blood coming in, then the local anesthetic will not be washed away. Isn't that so? Right? Simple. That's why it prolongs the duration of action, because the rate of removal is decreased. Rate of removal of lignocaine is decreased. So that's one reason why this is a rational combination. Second, because lignocaine does not spread a lot because of vasoconstriction, it remains at one point, so the intensity of nerve block increases. The third important reason, of course, is if it is not going to get flushed away, washed away, if it remains in the local tissue, then the entry of lignocaine in the systemic circulation is very slow, which means there is very little systemic toxicity. And because of the vasoconstriction, the field of surgery practically becomes bloodless, and that's a bonus, because bloodless field of surgery is equal to better vision, and you can be in and out of that operation in a very fast time. The only problem is, because of vasoconstriction, there is a chance of local tissue edema and necrosis and delayed wound healing. So this is a drawback. Fifth point. Sixth point is also a drawback, where if by mistake adrenaline is given inside a blood vessel, it can raise the blood pressure and promote arrhythmia. So 4 points for why it is a good combination. 2 reasons why you have to be careful not to use adrenaline too much. Simple enough, good to know, very important to know. Actually, not good to know, very important to know. Now, despite local anesthetic being such amazing medications at blocking the action potential of nerve, at the site of inflamed tissue, local anesthetic does not give good pain relief. Now, why would that be? 1. The inflammation lowers the pH of the tissue. The tissue becomes more acidic, and as a result, the local anesthetic becomes more ionized. Remember, I said unionized form of the drug crosses the neuronal membrane. If the drug is getting ionized, it can't diffuse inside the axolemma. Axolemma is the axon ka cytoplasm. So it does not go there, and as a result, it can't work. Simple. Second, the blood flow to any inflamed area is increased. Remember, the cardinal signs of inflammation are redness, pain, swelling, and local heat. So why is there redness? Because of vasodilatation. So the vasodilatation would mean more blood comes in, and as a result, local anesthetic is removed very rapidly. And the adrenaline injected along with local anesthetic does not work as a vasoconstrictor. Is not a good vasoconstrictor at inflamed site. And some people also believe that some of the inflammatory products directly oppose the action of local anesthetic, and that's the reason why local anesthetics are not good pain controllers in inflamed tissue. So what more do you have to know from this chapter? Well, some side effects. Of course, all local anesthetic have some side effects. Now this happens when you give too much concentration, and this high concentration of local anesthetic actually enters the bloodstream, and in the systemic circulation there is higher proportion of this medication. The CNS actions then start. If there is too much of local anesthetic in the circulation, then too much of CNS stimulation may happen. This produces restlessness, tremors, which may actually progress to clonic convulsions. Now, how is a local anesthetic, which is actually going to cause no action potential, cause stimulations? Now, I explain this with a very simple concept. We have two kinds of neurons in our brain, the excitatory neurons and the inhibitory neurons. Remember that friend of ours who annoys us a lot, and there's this voice in our brain which says, kick him. These are the excitatory neurons. You can remember it that way. Of course, kicking someone is not an excitatory, but it's an example. But there's also this voice in our brain that we are good friends, we should not hit someone. That's an inhibitory neuron. You know what happens when local anesthetic reaches the brain? The inhibitory neurons are inhibited first. So the only neurons remaining are excitatory neurons. Getting the idea? And that's the reason why stimulation happens. Later on, even that action will go away. All neurons will get depressed. So death will happen because of respiratory failure. Similar action also happens on cardiovascular system. There is depression of excitability, conduction rate decreases, force of contraction decreases, because after all, even muscles are using action potentials, right? Smooth muscles also use action potentials to cause constriction. When local anesthetic acts on the arteries, they dilate, and that can cause fall in blood pressure, known as cardiovascular collapse and death. Uncommon side effects will include ventricular tachycardia and ventricular fibrillation. They are very much more common in bupivacaine, but in all the others, not really common. What about smooth muscles? Contractions will decrease. So if it goes into the GIT, it will decrease. Vascular smooth muscles relax. That's why arteriolar dilatation, right? Even bronchial smooth muscles relax. We give them as spinal anesthetic, spinal or epidural or even peritoneal anesthetic. They block the sympathetic nervous system. When sympathetic nervous system is blocked, the only nervous system working in the GIT is the parasympathetic nervous system, and the tone of the GIT increases, the peristalsis increases. What about skeletal muscle? They block the N-type acetylcholine receptor, nicotinic receptors, and as a result, paralysis is caused. And hypersensitivity reaction is common, especially with the ester type, not with the amide type. Okay. Now, there are some precautions that you need to know. Before you inject a local anesthetic, you should always aspirate lightly. This avoids all intravascular injections. So if you aspirate and you see a drop of blood in the needle at the base of the needle, it means you are in an artery. You should not inject. Second, always inject slowly and never exceed the maximum safe dose, especially in children, otherwise the side effects are horrible. Third, ask the patient, does he have any history of hypertension, ischemic heart disease, arrhythmia, hyperthyroidism, or is he taking a beta blocker or a tricyclic antidepressant? Because in them, the lignocaine and the adrenaline both can cause serious problems. Okay, propranolol reduce hepatic blood flow. If hepatic blood flow decreases, the metabolism of local anesthetic will also decrease, and that will enhance toxicity. Vasoconstrictors like adrenaline, it should be avoided in patients who are severely hypertensive, otherwise their hypertension will get precipitated. Easy to understand. Now, there are some answers that you need to know here. First is lignocaine. See, lignocaine, when somebody asks you, give a general overview. It acts within 3 minutes. It has intense, longer lasting anesthesia, but it causes vasodilatation in the injected area. After this, you please write the mechanism of action. Getting it? Then you write the uses: surface application, infiltration. Infiltration is giving it inside the skin. Nerve block, giving it around the nerve. Epidural, giving it in the epidural space. Spinal, giving it inside the spinal cord. And even intravenous regional block. Now, Compared to other local anesthetic, the central effect of lignocaine is different. It's depressing. It starts with drowsiness, mental clouding, dysphoria, altered taste, and tinnitus. And then muscle twitching, convulsions, arrhythmias, fall in blood pressure, coma, respiratory arrest, just like other LAs. So you'll have to combine the side effects, the common side effect that we looked at, and this extra point, and write and make your answer a little bit bigger. Now, sometimes the question asked is eutectic lidocaine prilocaine. Eutectic mixture is a mixture that is of two solids. But the fun part is when you mix these two solids together, the melting point gets lower. So if you take, let's say, lignocaine or lidocaine and prilocaine and you mix it 50-50, the melting point of this combination is only 25 degrees centigrade. So if you apply this lidocaine prilocaine combination to the skin and then you wrap that area in an occlusive dressing and leave it for 1 hour, you can get absolute anesthesia for putting an IV cannula, for split skin graft harvesting, and many superficial procedures. The thickness of anesthesia is almost 5 mm, which is pretty deep. So it's a good thing. And the action lasts for 1 to 2 hours even after removing that occlusive dressing. So it's a fantastic mechanism. So this is how IV cannulas are put. You may require it for that, and split skin grafting is when you literally cut the skin and use it as a graft. I've just put this table for your help. This is not a very important table, but if you know it, it would be good. MCQs. If you know the systemic actions that we have already mentioned, it would be an added bonus, especially of bupivacaine. Okay, but not really necessary. I'll still go through this because you can enhance the length of your answer by this mechanism. The CNS is usually stimulation followed by depression. Early manifestations are circumoral numbness, so there is numbness around the mouth, abnormal sensations in the tongue, dizziness, blurring of vision, tinnitus, drowsiness, dysphoria, lethargy. Then it is followed by excitement, restlessness, agitation. So see, everything is decreasing, like and then kind of becoming overexcited, and then kind of falls back again. So excitement, restlessness, agitation, muscle twitching, seizures, and unconsciousness. Cardiodepressant activity we have already spoken about. Bupivacaine is more toxic, and there is fall in blood pressure. We have spoken about these systemic side effects. Now this one is still the answer of lidocaine I am talking about. Okay, lidocaine, lignocaine. You might add these points to get bonus marks. Right. Tetracaine never comes. I'm just giving it so that you know the MCQs. This is a highly lipid soluble PABA ester. It is slow acting, more potent, more toxic, because the hydrolysis of this medicine is by plasma pseudocholinesterase enzyme, and it takes time. It is good for surface anesthesia and conduction block anesthesia, and you can even apply it topically to eyes, ears, nose, throat, tracheobronchial tree, and rarely for spinal or caudal anesthesia of long duration. The chances of this medicine getting absorbed from the tracheobronchial tree is high, so please watch out for side effects. And bupivacaine. Bupivacaine is a potent, long-acting amide-linked local anesthetic, which we use for infiltration, nerve blocks, epidural and spinal anesthesia of long duration, and this is the medicine of choice for obstetrics. 0.25 to 0.5% solution given epidurally gives you fantastic analgesia. Only pain is blocked, no Boter blockade happens, which means the mother can feel the muscles contracting. She is not anesthetized. She can actually contribute by bearing down. Bearing down is when the mother pushes so that the baby comes out. So this is it. It has high lipid solubility. Water soluble substances usually cross placenta easily, not lipid soluble ones. So bupivacaine hardly reaches the baby. The side effects that we have to be worried about is prolonged QTC interval and with ventricular tachycardia or cardiac depression. That's it. Bupivacaine, I don't think will come in your exam. Just one read and should be done. I have put this table specifically because a few years back this particular thing has come in exam, difference between local anesthetic and general anesthesia. Please take a screenshot and keep it for your reference. It will be very helpful. So this is it. This is where we stop this particular session. You have kind of completed all the important questions that can ever be asked. Important questions: difference between LA and GA, the mechanism of action of local anesthetic, where LA fails, why is there a rational combination of adrenaline and lidocaine, and the adverse effects. Don't forget lidocaine properly and eutectic mixture. Simple. Let me know if there's any doubts. I will be more than happy to help you. Till the next time I meet you, this is Dr. Avinash signing off for now. Take care, keep studying and keep rocking. Bye bye.